Hello, Kenneth. Thank you very much for joining us today. My first straightforward question for you is money or courage?
You have to have a little bit of both, a little bit of money and a lot of courage, because the cycles are never linear. The market doesn't always go up.
Right. How do you see the movement of markets in India at the moment?
The movements of the market in India versus the rest of the world is not very different from what it has been in the past. Markets are always volatile, whether it's going up or whether it's coming down. Markets always recover and markets always correct. I've been investing since 1987, and I have invested at all-time high, that in multiple periods of time. So if you're worried about investing at multiple periods at an all-time high, believe me, in 20 years you won't even bother about that, or you won't even notice in 20 years. So it's a journey you have to start, and you're starting right now, and markets are not doing anything that they're not supposed to do.
There are reports that there are 1 crore new demat accounts now, which means that in the past 1 year, a lot of young people have actually considered market as a serious asset building and saving instrument. What does Kenneth Andrade recommend?
I definitely have to hold a business or a stock over a longer term period and not worry about the gyration. Now, to do that, very simply put, you have to invest in a business which will be around for the next 10 years or maybe the next 20. If you're doing that, you will never lose cash. We don't like to overpay, and we're definitely not there with some of the favorites of the market. Basically, to buy an industry which is not doing well. Okay. Now that's counterintuitive. Every industry or every business has a cycle, and when it's troughing out, I think that's a time where you get some of these companies very cheap in terms of pricing. Try and buy industries that haven't done very well for the last couple of years.
A lot of people had been speculating about a bubble which is set to burst any moment, particularly after the Sensex breached the 50,000 mark. These speculations grew louder and louder. How do you see this bubble analogy really? Is there a bubble? If yes, is it certainly going to burst?
What is a bubble first? A bubble is when some stocks are priced very expensively. It is in a certain part of the market for sure, but that's a situation that comes in at all points in time. So if you go back to 2015, and there was a bubble, but nobody mentioned it. It was there in pharmaceutical businesses, and that corrected itself well into 2018 and 2019. Objectively, you have to place yourself and see how do you want to use the situation to your benefit.
Right.
So if you're a momentum investor, obviously you use a stop loss. If you're a value investor, obviously you try and accumulate more of the same at various levels. So yes, so that's how you execute the cycle. And I go back to say that even if there's a bubble, so what?
Right. Another thing that a lot of people want to know is how much of an impact do budget announcements have on markets?
Oh, I mean, as an investor, I really think it's an overrated event for capital markets. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I don't even know what happened in the last budget. I don't even know what happened in the budget before that.
Would you agree to that analogy that it's also sort of gambling?
If you're just betting on stock prices, that's another extreme of it all. In our industry, also, it's basically a skill set. Okay, some people reduce it to doing a transaction and flipping stock, but to each his own. That's how liquidity also gets created in the marketplace. But no, I would not agree to the fact that it's a pure gamble out there.
What are the most typical mistakes that a new entrant makes, and how can people avoid those?
I think 90% of everyone, 99% of everyone comes into the marketplace believing that he can only make money and can't lose it. I think that's the biggest mistake. I have lost money for 10 years in a row before I started making it. You have to keep going at it for the next, as long as it takes to master the craft.
Right. So you're not really recommending day trading and stuff.
If you've got the knack for it, if you've got the skill set for it, go right ahead. I haven't seen a day trader becoming the richest man in the world ever.
Are equity investments a safe bet for people who are cautious?
Oh, super safe. I wouldn't blink an eyelid before saying that. Okay. The only difference is if you are super cautious, you might have to have an elongated time frame of holding on to your business. Because equities lose money if the company closes down. Okay, if the company doesn't close down, it's very rare that you never make money in the cycle.
Whenever there is a market crash and there are news of people losing crores of rupees and maybe hundreds of crores, and there are these very scary headlines, how does one overcome that fear?
So you started off this entire conversation by asking whether you should have money or courage.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the latter, don't bother getting into the cycle because you will get a correction which will scare the daylights out of you. But if you're in this journey for the long haul, and if you want to make this and if you want to make this your trade, or you want to master the art of investing, you have to be there for the long haul. If you're there in the long haul, you will definitely lose money in the near term.
Okay, so the ultimate question here is, can markets be predicted?
No, they cannot be predicted over near term. But in the longer term, I think it's good. There's an underlying economic rationale as to why markets are where they are.
Right. Thank you so much, Kenneth. This has been a very short and really informative chat. A lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. All the
Thanks.
best.